Introduction. Your wish is my command, whether you know it or not. The great creative law of consciousness is operating in your life right now. It does not wait for your permission. It does not check whether you understand it. It does not stop until you decide to consciously direct it. This law is the unseen architect behind every event, every relationship, every opportunity, every closed door, every open one. As Neville Goddard taught, your imagination is creating your reality. Morning, noon, and night. Whether you choose your thoughts or whether they choose you, the law moves automatically. This book is written to show you one essential truth. It is better to know the law is working and use it consciously than to be unaware of it and let it use you unconsciously. Because when the law operates without your direction, it expresses the dominant vibrations you carry by default. Old assumptions, old fears, old memories, old limitations. And those patterns repeat, not because fate demands it, but because consciousness reproduces what consciousness accepts as true. Scripture says, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he." Proverbs 23:7. Your heart in biblical language is not emotion. It is the subconscious mind, the soil in which all seeds are planted and from which all experiences grow. Your outer world is nothing more than the harvest of yesterday's inner assumptions. But here lies the extraordinary secret. You can decide the harvest by choosing the seed. Consciousness is the gardener. Imagination is the soil. Assumption is the seed. Feeling is the water. Faith is the sunlight. And manifestation is the natural growth. The conscious mind is a muscle. Most people drift unconsciously through life because they never learn how to use the conscious mind deliberately. They allow circumstances to think for them. They let emotions dictate their interpretations. They let logic decide what is or isn't possible. But the conscious mind is a muscle. And like any muscle, if you do not use it intentionally, it grows weak, very weak. Atrophy sets in. Then when you need strength, when you need focus, or faith, or clarity, when you need to hold the image of your wish fulfilled, you discover the muscle is too weak to lift the weight. This is why daily mental discipline is not optional. It is spiritual fitness. Paul wrote, "Be transformed by the renewing of your mind." Romans 12. Renewing is a daily act, a choice, a practice. You cannot renew what you do not use. You cannot strengthen what you do not exercise. This book teaches you how to train the mind so that your inner world becomes your greatest servant rather than your unconscious master. Logic is the enemy of desire. One of the greatest traps of the conscious mind is logic. Logic is useful for navigating the physical world, but it becomes poisonous when used to determine spiritual possibility. Logic works within limitation. Imagination works beyond limitation. If your logic is choosing your desires, you are dreaming far too small. Logic says, "I don't know how this could happen." Faith says, "It is already mine." Imagination says, "I have seen the end, therefore the end must appear." Jesus said, "With God all things are possible." Matthew 19:26. There is nothing logical about all things. All things means beyond every restriction, every probability, every prediction, every limitation. This book will teach you how to dream bigger than your logic. and allow the divine to orchestrate the how. Dream big. Then let God do his part. Once you have dared to imagine boldly, once you have assumed the wish fulfilled, once you have stabilized the feeling of the end, you must step aside. You must allow God, or the universe, the subconscious, the infinite, to perform the work. Because the moment you try to force the how, you step out of the spiritual realm and back into the realm of limitation. The how is never your job. Your job is to choose the end. God's job is to navigate the bridge of incidents. Neville wrote, "Your imagination is the creator, and your assumption is the path by which creation flows." You imagine it. You assume it. You feel it real. You claim it as done. Then, you let the unseen power move. Just as the farmer plants the seed, covers the soil, and walks away, trusting nature to finish what he began. You plant your desire in imagination and trust consciousness to bring it to harvest. The purpose of this book. This work is designed to awaken in you the awareness that the law is always operating, the ability to consciously direct it, the discipline to exercise your mental muscle, the clarity to choose desire over logic, the courage to assume boldly, the faith to release the outcome, the wisdom to let God fulfill the end you have chosen. When you finish this journey, you will never again say, "I don't know what's happening in my life." You will say with confidence, "My wish is the command. My imagination is the cause. My assumption is the creative act. My end determines my path. This is your power. This is your inheritance. And this book will show you exactly how to use it." Chapter 1. The law is always working. Whether you are aware of it or not, the law of consciousness is operating every second of your life. It does not sleep. It does not pause. It does not wait for you to understand it before it expresses itself. Like gravity, it functions with perfect consistency, responding only to the assumptions you entertain within yourself. This is why the first step toward mastery is recognition. The law is always at work, not sometimes, not occasionally, not only when you meditate or pray, always. Neville Goddard taught, "Your imagination is creating your reality, morning, noon, and night." This is not a poetic suggestion. It is literal. The moment you accept a thought as true, the moment you dwell in a feeling or assumption, you give the law its marching orders. And with unfailing precision, it begins arranging the outer world to mirror the inner state you have accepted. Jesus expressed this principle simply, "According to your faith, be it unto you." Matthew 9:29. He didn't say according to God's mood, or according to chance, or according to timing, but according to your faith, your assumption. This means the world you see around you is not happening to you. It is happening through you. It is your imagination faithfully outpicturing the beliefs you hold beneath the surface of awareness. When you understand this, you stop blaming conditions. You stop wrestling with effects. You stop fighting shadows. You begin working at the only place where true change occurs, the inner realm. The danger of not knowing. When the law runs unconsciously, it does not stop working. It simply expresses whatever state dominates your inner world. If fear dominates, fear expresses. If doubt dominates, doubt expresses. If insecurity dominates, insecurity expresses. The law does not discriminate. It only produces what you entertain. This is why ignorance of the law is so costly. If you don't know it's working, you can't direct it. If you don't know you're planting seeds, you can't choose the harvest. If you don't know you're assuming outcomes, you can't change the results. You live reactively instead of creatively. And life begins to feel random, unstable, unpredictable. Not because it is unpredictable, but because you are unaware that you are the cause. This book exists to wake you up to that truth. The conscious mind as a muscle. Your conscious mind is your instrument of direction, the selector of states, the chooser of assumptions. But most people have never trained this muscle. They've never learned to hold a thought, sustain a feeling, or remain loyal to a chosen end. They allow the mind to wander freely, reacting to whatever the world presents. But just as a physical muscle weakens when unused, the conscious mind also falls into atrophy. When you do not use it purposefully, it becomes too weak to hold the vision, too weak to silence logic, too weak to sustain assumption, too weak to command the inner world. Then, when you truly need it, when you need to stand still in faith, when you need to direct your imagination, when you need to ignore appearances, you discover it lacks the strength. Paul warned against this spiritual weakness when he wrote, "Be renewed in the spirit of your mind." Ephesians 4:23. Renewal implies repetition. Repetition implies discipline. Discipline implies practice. The conscious mind must be exercised daily, not weekly, not occasionally, daily. You renew it by choosing your thoughts instead of allowing thoughts to choose you. You renew it by holding the feeling of the wish fulfilled instead of reacting to appearances. You renew it by imagining boldly instead of shrinking in fear. When you don't use it, it uses you. Neglected consciousness becomes a servant of habit. It defaults to old assumptions. It falls back into outdated self-images. It replays yesterday's fears as today's expectations. Unused, undirected consciousness becomes a machine programmed by past experiences. And once the past becomes the programmer, the future becomes predictable. The same emotions return, the same disappointments resurface, the same limitations recycle. Not by fate, but by the atrophy of your inner power. This is why Jesus said, "Take no thought for tomorrow." Matthew 6:34. Not because tomorrow is irrelevant, but because worry plants seeds you don't want to harvest. When the conscious mind is weak, fear becomes the default gardener. But when the conscious mind is strong, you become the gardener. Logic cannot determine your desire. One of the greatest mistakes people make is letting logic choose their desires. Logic operates strictly on limitation. It measures based on past data, current conditions, and predictable outcomes. But desire belongs to the realm of imagination, not statistics. Logic says, this is possible. Imagination says, all things are possible. Logic calculates. Imagination creates. Logic obeys probability. Imagination obeys possibility. When you allow logic to define what you want, you shrink your destiny to the size of your past. You dream only within the boundaries of what seems realistic. But Jesus said, with God, all things are possible. Matthew 19:26. All things invalidates logic entirely. Your desire is not meant to be logical. It is meant to be spiritual, inspired, expansive, beyond reason. Desire is God's whisper within you, calling you toward the greater version of yourself. Never downgrade a divine calling to satisfy human logic. Dream big, then let God do the work. Once you have chosen a desire bigger than your logic, once you have dared to assume the wish fulfilled, your next step is surrender. Allow the universe, God, the subconscious mind, the infinite, to handle the how. Your only job is the end. The divine handles the bridge of incidents. Neville said, "You do not make the thing happen. You allow it to happen." This requires trust. This requires confidence. This requires the courage to remain in the assumption even when nothing appears to be changing. But rest assured, my friend, the moment you assume the end, the unseen world begins to rearrange itself. People shift. Ideas rise. Paths open. Events align. Not by effort, but by spiritual law. Your wish is the command, and the law hears every word you speak in the silence of imagination. Chapter 2. The Power of a Chosen State. Everything in your life, every circumstance, every relationship, every opportunity, every setback is the direct reflection of the state of consciousness you occupy. A state is not an emotion. A state is not a thought. A state is not a wish. A state is an entire attitude of mind, a psychological atmosphere, a vibration you live from. Neville Goddard said, "States are the only reality." This is one of the greatest spiritual secrets. Life does not respond to what you want. Life responds to the state you consistently inhabit. Two people can desire wealth, but only the one who assumes the state of financial abundance will manifest it. Two people can desire love, but only the one who dwells in the state of being loved will experience it. Two people can desire healing, but only the one who occupies the state of wholeness will see the transformation unfold. Desire without state is merely longing, but desire fused with a chosen state becomes creation. Jesus expressed this law when he said, "When ye pray, believe that ye have received it, and it shall be yours." Mark 11:24. To believe you have received is to enter the state where the thing is already yours. It is to mentally move into the version of yourself who already possesses the desire. When you take on that identity, the outer world rearranges to match the new state you occupy. You are always in a state, whether you know it or not. Just as we discussed in Chapter 1 that the law is always operating, the same is true with states. You are never without a state. At every moment, you are expressing one, consciously or unconsciously. You may be in a state of lack, confidence, unworthiness, gratitude, frustration, possibility, fear, power, peace, doubt. States are not random. They are chosen or inherited from habit. When you don't choose your state, the world chooses it for you. Circumstances suggest fear, and you accept it. Bills suggest lack, and you accept it. Delays suggest hopelessness, and you accept it. The news suggests danger, and you accept it. But a master of consciousness never takes on a state that contradicts their desire. They choose the atmosphere they wish to dwell in, and they remain loyal to it. even when appearances say otherwise. The state creates the bridge of incidents. Once you enter a state, the law begins constructing a series of events, conversations, ideas, impulses, and opportunities that carry you towards the fulfillment of that state. This chain reaction is called the bridge of incidents. These are not forced events. They are natural events. They arise with such subtlety and perfection that you rarely recognize their divine orchestration until after the manifestation. For example, enter the state of wealth. And suddenly, an inspired idea appears. A new connection forms, an opportunity rises, a door opens. Enter the state of love, and you attract people who match your new vibration. Conversations feel different. Your presence changes. Your interactions shift. Enter the state of healing, and your body responds. Your habits strengthen. Your intuition guides you. Your energy transforms. All outcomes are formed backstage in the unseen, before they appear on the main stage of the physical world. Paul described this perfectly. The things which are seen were not made of things which do appear. Hebrews 11:3. The invisible state precedes the visible result. The conscious mind chooses. The subconscious mind creates. Your outward life is the expression of the subconscious mind, but the subconscious only accepts what the conscious mind impresses upon it. This is why your conscious mind must be strong, deliberate, and disciplined. It is the gatekeeper. When you choose a state consciously, you impress that state upon the subconscious, and the subconscious immediately begins producing conditions to match it. But when the conscious mind is weak, when it has not been exercised, when it has no discipline, it cannot hold the chosen state long enough for the subconscious to accept it. The state collapses, the old identity returns, the former patterns reactivate. This is why the conscious mind must be used daily like a muscle. James wrote, "A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways." James 1:8. Double-mindedness is the inability to hold a chosen state. The mind flips back and forth between old beliefs and new desires, but a trained consciousness. Strong, disciplined, consistent, holds the state until it hardens into fact. Feeling is the substance of the state. You do not simply think your way into a state. You feel your way into it. The feeling is the signature, the vibrational fingerprint of the state you occupy. Neville said, "Feeling is the secret. To assume the state of wealth, you must feel secure, abundant, supplied. To assume the state of love, you must feel valued, wanted, cherished. To assume the state of success, you must feel capable, confident, triumphant." The feeling is not a reaction to the manifestation. The feeling is the cause of the manifestation. Scripture confirms this. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart. 1 Samuel 16:7. The heart here means the inner feeling, the subconscious acceptance. God, the law, responds not to your words, but to your inner state. A state must be worn like clothing. Think of a state as an outfit. You must wear it consistently for the world to recognize you in it. You cannot put on the garment of abundance for 5 minutes and expect the world to treat you as wealthy. You cannot put on the garment of love for a moment and expect deep relationships to manifest. You cannot put on the garment of healing occasionally and expect the body to transform. States require occupancy. You must live in the end, walk in the end, speak from the end, react from the end, think from the end. Isaiah wrote, "Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee." Isaiah 26:3. Stayed means fixed, anchored, unmoved. A state that is stayed becomes your identity, and your identity becomes your experience. Choose your state before the world chooses it for you. Every morning you wake up inside a state. The question is, did you choose it? Or did it choose you? Masters of consciousness decide the atmosphere of their day before they interact with the world. They choose the state of gratitude before circumstances give them a reason. They choose the state of confidence before opportunities appear. They choose the state of abundance before money arrives. They choose the state of love before anyone affirms them. They live from the end, not toward it. This is the true meaning of Jesus' instruction. Seek first the kingdom of God, and all these things shall be added unto you. Matthew 6:33. The kingdom is the inner state. The things are the outer manifestations. Choose the state first. The world will follow. Chapter 3. The Art of Assumption. Assumption is the creative act of God within you. It is the invisible stroke of the divine brush that paints the unseen into the seen. Everything you have ever manifested, good or bad, wanted or unwanted, arrived through assumption. You assumed a position, a belief, a conclusion, and the law faithfully brought it into expression. Neville Goddard taught, "Assumption, though false, will harden into fact." This is a staggering truth. It means you do not need evidence to assume. You do not need logic to assume. You do not need probability to assume. You do not need other people to agree with your assumption. You only need willingness. Assumption precedes creation in the same way a seed precedes the harvest. The farmer does not demand proof. The seed will become a tree. He plants it. He trusts the unseen process. He assumes the law of growth will do its part. Likewise, you assume the law of consciousness will fulfill the feeling of the wish fulfilled. This is why Jesus said, "According to your faith, be it unto you." Matthew 9:29. Your faith is your assumption. Assume it inwardly, and the world outwardly has no choice but to obey. Assumption is not daydreaming. It is identification. Most people imagine desires but never assume them. They fantasize about what they want, but they never shift their identity to the version of themselves who already possesses it. But assumption requires identity. To assume wealth is to identify as one who already is wealthy. To assume love is to identify as one who already is loved. To assume success is to identify as one who already is triumphant. You cannot assume an outcome while identifying as someone who lacks it. You must become the version of yourself who has it, in imagination, long before the world sees it. This is the meaning of Ephesians 4:24. Put on the new man. This is not metaphor, it is instruction. Put on the state. Put on the feeling. Put on the end result. Put on the identity, just as you would put on a garment. The law responds to your inner conclusion. Everything you assume becomes a decree. It is as though the moment you say within, "This is who I am," the law responds, "So it shall be." the world rearranges itself to match your inner verdict. If you assume you are always overlooked, you will be. If you assume opportunities pass you by, they will. If you assume people don't value you, they won't. Not because the world is cruel, but because the world is obedient. Your assumption is the command. Reality is the servant. On the other hand, assume you are favored, and you will be. Assume you are wanted, and you will be. Assume you are prosperous, and doors will open. Assume you are guided, and wisdom will appear. Assume you are chosen, and life will reveal its intention for you. You are not waiting for life. Life is waiting for your assumption. Assumption must override logic. Logic is the enemy of assumption because logic demands evidence. Assumption demands imagination. Logic says it's not possible. Assumption says it is already done. Logic says you don't have the resources. Assumption says the resources will appear. Logic says you've never done this before. Assumption says I already am the person who has done it. Scripture warns against the limitations of logic. Lean not unto thine own understanding. Proverbs 3:5. Your understanding is based on memory, and memory is based on the past. But assumption creates the future. Do not let the echo of yesterday decide the vision of tomorrow. In the world of spirit, the assumption comes first. The evidence comes after. Never reverse the order. The feeling of the wish fulfilled is the assumption activated. Assumption is not merely words. It is not saying, I am wealthy, while feeling lack. It is not saying, I am loved, while feeling unwanted. It is not saying, I am successful, while feeling powerless. Words without feeling are empty, but words fused with feeling become creation. Neville said, you must feel the state as though it were true. Feeling is the bridge. Feeling is the acceptance. Feeling is the imprint upon the subconscious. When you assume something, feel it as though it is happening now, not tomorrow, not someday, now. Feel the security of abundance. Feel the joy of love. Feel the peace of healing. Feel the confidence of success. Feel the relief of answered prayer. Feel the gratitude of fulfillment. Once the feeling is natural, the assumption is complete. Living from the end is the practical application of assumption. To assume the wish fulfilled is to think, feel, act, and imagine from the end result, not toward it. You react from the version of yourself who already has the desire. You speak from that version. You interpret events from that version. You walk into every moment wearing the identity of the fulfilled desire. Jesus demonstrated this when he said, Father, I thank thee that thou hast heard me. John 11:41. He gave thanks before the miracle. That is assumption. That is living from the end. When you live from the end, circumstances lose their power. Delays do not intimidate you. Setbacks do not disturb you. Confusion does not sway you. Why? Because you are already dwelling in the finished state, and the finished state controls the path. Persistence is the proof of assumption. If you abandon an assumption because the outer world has not yet rearranged itself, you never assumed. You only wished. Assumption remains steady. Assumption endures. Assumption stands unmoved until the world bends. Jesus said, "If ye remain in me." John 15:7. Meaning, if you remain in the state, if you persist in the identity, if you do not forsake the end, the manifestation must unfold. Persistence is the muscle of assumption, and like any muscle, it grows stronger the more you use it. What you assume, you become. At the deepest level, assumption is not about getting things. It is about becoming someone. Assume abundance. You become the person abundance belongs to. Assume love. You become the embodiment of love. Assume success. You become the one success expresses through. Assume wisdom. You become the channel of divine insight. Assume wholeness. You become the healed. This is the mystery of Colossians 3:10. Put on the new self, renewed in knowledge. The new self is the assumed identity. The renewal is the assumption reinforced. The knowledge is the awareness of your power. Assumption transforms identity. Identity transforms experience. Chapter 4. The Discipline of Imagination. Imagination is the workshop of God within you. It is the place where the invisible becomes visible, where the formless takes form, where the impossible becomes inevitable. Everything created by man began in imagination. Every invention, every business, every breakthrough, every act of genius was first an image held in the mind before it became a fact in the world. Neville Goddard declared, "Man is all imagination." This is not poetry, it is literal. Metaphysics. You are not a body having thoughts. You are consciousness having a physical experience. Your body is an instrument. Your imagination is the creator. Scripture confirms this truth. Whatsoever things ye desire, when ye pray, believe that ye have received them. Mark 11:24. To believe you have received means you must see it, feel it, embody it in imagination before your senses ever touch it. Imagination is the only creative power. The physical world is the delayed reflection of what imagination has already completed. The problem is not that people lack imagination. It's that they lack discipline. They imagine, but they do not direct their imagination. They daydream, but they do not assume. They visualize, but they do not remain loyal to the inner picture. Just as the conscious mind must be exercised daily, imagination requires discipline, practice, and consistency. Without discipline, imagination becomes a servant of fear. With discipline, imagination becomes the architect of destiny. The untrained mind imagines unconsciously. Everyone uses imagination, but not everyone uses it consciously. Most people imagine worst-case scenarios and then wonder why life reflects fear. They imagine being rejected, and then they encounter coldness from others. They imagine losing money, and then circumstances tighten. They imagine being overlooked, and then opportunities pass them by. This is not coincidence. It is creation. Job said it plainly. The thing I greatly feared has come upon me. Job 3:25. Fear is imagination misused. Worry is imagination corrupted. Anxiety is imagination running without guidance. If you do not discipline imagination, your fears will paint your future for you. But if you train your imagination, Your desires will paint it instead. The secret of inner rehearsal. Imagination is not a passive activity, it is active creation. To imagine consciously is to rehearse. The end you desire with such clarity that your subconscious accepts it as reality. Once the subconscious accepts it, manifestation is inevitable. Neville taught the technique of inner conversations, where you rehearse mentally the conversations you would have after your desire has been fulfilled. This shifts your internal state from longing to possession. It turns the wish into assumption. For example, imagine hearing someone congratulate you, receiving the phone call of good news, seeing the number in your bank account, feeling the ring on your finger, signing the contract, stepping into your new home, celebrating the healing. Inner rehearsal is powerful because the subconscious does not know the difference between imagination and physical experience. Whatever you rehearse emotionally in imagination becomes your psychological truth. This is why Jesus said, "As thou hast believed, so be it done unto thee." Matthew 8:13. Belief is internal rehearsal made real. Discipline is required, not force. Imagination does not respond to strain. It responds to ease, to confidence, to clarity. Force reveals doubt. Effort reveals disbelief. Strain reveals uncertainty. The disciplined use of imagination feels natural, smooth, effortless. You do not push imagination, you guide it. You gently redirect your attention from what you do not want to what you do want. You train your mind like a child, lovingly, patiently, consistently. Isaiah wrote, "Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on thee." Isaiah 26:3. Stayed means fixed, focused, steady. This is the essence of disciplined imagination. You bring your mind back to the picture again and again, not with aggression, but with certainty. Imagination must override the senses. The senses are deceptive. They reflect only the past. They show you what your old assumptions produced, not what your new assumption is becoming. If you allow the senses to dictate your imagination, you will remain trapped in the same cycles. The senses say, nothing has changed. Imagination says, everything has changed. The senses say, I don't see it. Imagination says, I already have it. The senses say, it's impossible. Imagination says, it is finished. Scripture reminds you, we walk by faith, not by sight. 2 Corinthians 5:7. Faith is imagination directed. Sight is the echo of yesterday. Never let the echo control the new song you are composing. Learn to enter the state at will. Disciplined imagination allows you to enter any state at any moment. You become the master of your internal world. You no longer wait for conditions to feel prosperous, loved, or confident. You assume the feeling on command. This is true power. Neville called this the controlled waking dream. It is the ability to step into the version of yourself who already has your desire, and to think, feel, and act from that version. When you master this ability, life bends to your inner identity, not with effort, but with alignment. Your disciplined imagination becomes the steering wheel of destiny. Imagination and feeling are one. Imagination without feeling is hollow. Feeling without imagination is unshaped energy. When the two become one, creation is certain. To imagine properly is to evoke the feeling. To feel properly is to animate the picture. This union is the secret behind manifestation. Jesus said, "If two of you shall agree on earth as touching anything they shall ask, it shall be done." Matthew 18:19. The two are not people. They are imagination and feeling. When imagination sees the end, and feeling agrees that it is so, the law must respond. Discipline creates momentum. At first, disciplining imagination may feel challenging because the mind has been allowed to wander freely for many years. But with practice, something incredible happens. Your imagination begins to default to the desired state. You begin thinking as the new version of yourself automatically. You begin feeling the wish fulfilled without effort. You begin responding to life as the person who already possesses the desire. This is spiritual momentum. And once momentum begins, manifestation accelerates. Paul wrote, "Be renewed in the spirit of your mind." Ephesians 4:23. Renewal is repetition. Repetition is discipline. Discipline is freedom. The disciplined imagination commands reality. When your imagination is trained, you no longer react to the world. You command it. You no longer chase conditions. You create them. You no longer fear outcomes. You assume them. The disciplined imagination is the throne of creation, and from this throne you declare, "My wish is my command." Because the moment you imagine with discipline, the law begins obeying your inner decree. Chapter 5. The feeling of the wish fulfilled. If imagination is the workshop of creation, then feeling is the life force. That animates the image. Feeling is the electricity that gives the picture its power. Without feeling, the image remains a lifeless sketch. With feeling, the image becomes a living command to the subconscious mind. And the subconscious will never disobey a feeling that has been accepted as true. Neville Goddard taught the core principle of manifestation in 5 simple words. Feeling is the secret. Not action, not effort, not logic, not strategy. Feeling. Your entire world is an emotional photograph of your dominant inner feeling. Change the feeling, and the picture must change. Maintain the feeling, and the picture must harden into fact. Scripture echoes this metaphysical truth. Guard your heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. Proverbs 4:23. The heart spoken of here is not your physical organ. It is the emotional core of your being, the feeling state that you live from. Your outer life flows from the feelings you have accepted as natural. Feeling is the language of the subconscious. The subconscious mind does not respond to words. It responds to impressions. Words may instruct, but feelings command. You can speak affirmations for hours, yet if the feeling contradicts the words, the subconscious will follow the feeling every time. Say, "I am wealthy," with a feeling of lack, and you remain in lack. Say, "I am loved," with a feeling of insecurity, and you remain in insecurity. Say, "I am healed," with a feeling of fear, and the healing is postponed. But say, "I am wealthy," with a feeling of abundance. Say, "I am loved," with a feeling of warmth. Say, "I am healed," with a feeling of completion. and reality must bow to the feeling. This principle is universal and inescapable. The feeling you accept as true becomes your fate. Your fate is not written in the stars. It is written in your feelings. People believe they are a victim of circumstance, when in truth, they are a victim of their own inner emotional atmosphere. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you feel to be true. Jesus demonstrated this principle when a woman touched the hem of his garment and was healed. His response was profound. "Daughter, your faith has made you whole." Mark 5:34. Her faith was not a verbal belief, it was a felt conviction. She felt the healing before the healing appeared. Therefore, the healing had to appear. This is the essence of manifestation. Feel it first, and the world responds. You must feel the end, not the means. Feeling the wish fulfilled is often misunderstood. Most people try to feel the steps leading toward the desire. They try to feel progress, improvement, or movement. But the law responds not to progress. It responds to completion. You must feel the end result, as though it has already happened. If you desire wealth, do not feel, "I am becoming wealthy." Feel, "I am already wealthy." If you desire love, don't feel, "I am attracting someone." Feel, "I am cherished, valued, chosen." If you desire healing, do not feel, "I am getting better." Feel, "I am whole." If you desire success, do not feel, "I am climbing." Feel, "I have arrived." Neville taught, you must dare to assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled. This is the boldness Jesus spoke of in Matthew 21:22. "Whatsoever ye ask in prayer, believing, ye shall receive." Believing means feeling the end before the senses confirm it. Naturalness is the goal. The key to holding the feeling is naturalness. You must repeat the inner experience until it becomes familiar, comfortable, effortless. Once the feeling becomes natural, manifestation accelerates. For example, if wealth feels unnatural, the subconscious resists. If love feels unnatural, the subconscious hesitates. If success feels unnatural, the subconscious returns to old patterns. But once the feeling becomes natural, the subconscious accepts it as identity, and identity always expresses itself. This is why Jesus said, "Make the tree good, and its fruit will be good." Matthew 12:33. The tree is your inner feeling state. The fruit is your outer experience. You cannot produce different fruit without becoming a different tree. Feeling must override appearances. The senses always present the old story. They show you evidence of yesterday's consciousness, not today's assumption. If you allow the senses to dictate your feeling, you will remain trapped in a loop of repetition. Feeling must overpower sight. Feeling must overpower circumstance. Feeling must overpower logic. Feeling must overpower the opinions of others. This is why Paul wrote, "Walk by faith, not by sight." 2 Corinthians 5:7. Faith is emotional certainty. Sight is outdated information. Your inner feeling is the cause. Your outer condition is the effect. Never confuse the two. The power of relaxation in feeling. Feeling is not created through effort, but through ease. The more relaxed the mind, the more deeply the feeling penetrates. Neville emphasized the state akin to sleep, a deeply relaxed, receptive state, where the conscious mind is quiet and the subconscious is open. This is the perfect moment to impress a feeling. Not while you are tense, not while you are anxious, not while you are forcing. Feeling thrives in quietness. Isaiah wrote, "In quietness and confidence shall be your strength." Isaiah 30:15. Quietness allows the feeling to sink in. Confidence sustains the feeling outwardly. Gratitude is the emotional signature of fulfillment. Nothing aligns you with the feeling of the wish fulfilled like gratitude. Gratitude is the emotional evidence that the prayer is answered. Gratitude is the vibration of possession. Gratitude is the inner confirmation that the desire is already yours. This is why Jesus always gave thanks before the miracle. "Father, I thank thee that thou hast heard me." John 11:41. He thanked before the tomb opened, before the manifestation appeared, before anyone else believed. That is the essence of the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Gratitude is spiritual proof that you are already in possession. Hold the feeling, and the law will do the rest. Once the feeling is established, you do not chase results. You do not force outcomes. You do not obsess over timing. You simply hold the feeling and allow the law to unfold the bridge of incidents. Neville said, "You don't make the thing happen. You feel the thing happening." Feeling is not only the beginning, it is the finishing act. Because the moment the feeling is real within, the manifestation is guaranteed without. Chapter 6. The Power of Persistence. Manifestation is not a matter of luck, nor timing, nor coincidence. It is a matter of persistence. Persistence is the invisible force that separates wishful thinking from actual creation. It is the inner loyalty to your chosen state, despite the temporary evidence of your senses. Neville Goddard put it plainly. Persist in the assumption that your desire is already fulfilled. Why? Because persistence is the proof that you have truly accepted the end. Persistence is the glue that holds the assumption in place long enough for reality to rearrange itself. Scripture echoes this with divine clarity. "He that endureth to the end shall be saved." Matthew 24:13. Enduring means holding the state. Being saved means receiving the manifestation. Persistence is the endurance of consciousness. Persistence is not struggle. It is loyalty to the end. Most people think persistence means fighting or forcing, but true persistence is calm. It is steady. It is the inner confidence that the end is already yours. Persistence is not clenched fists. It is a relaxed certainty. Persistence is not anxiety. It is assurance. Persistence is not effort. It is occupancy. A person who persists is simply one who refuses to leave the state of the wish fulfilled, no matter what the outer world shows. They remain. They stand. They dwell in the end. This is why Jesus said, "If ye abide in me, ask what ye will, and it shall be done unto you." John 15:7. To abide means to remain in the end state. The senses will always challenge you. Whenever you assume a new state, your senses will attempt to pull you back into the old identity. Your eyes may see no progress. Your ears may hear nothing encouraging. Your circumstances may still reflect yesterday's consciousness. But persistence is the refusal to accept the senses as truth. Neville said, "To attempt to change circumstances before you change your imaginal activity is to struggle against the very nature of things." The outer world is slow to catch up. The inner world is instant. Persistence bridges the gap. This is why Paul wrote, "We walk by faith, not by sight." 2 Corinthians 5:7. Faith equals persistence in the unseen. Sight equals attachment to the old. Persistence destroys old patterns. Your old life is nothing but your old assumptions. The moment you create a new assumption, the old patterns begin to starve. But they may attempt to resurface. Old doubts, old fears, old emotional triggers, old habits, old memories. These are not signs of failure. They are signs of transition. Persistence kills the old self. By refusing to react in the old way, you withdraw energy from the old identity, and what you no longer feed must die. This is the meaning behind "Put off the old man with his deeds." Colossians 3:9. The deeds of the old man are the reactions. Persistence replaces them with the reactions of the new self. The bridge of incidents requires your stability. After assuming the end, the subconscious begins constructing a perfect sequence of events, known as the bridge of incidents. This bridge leads directly to your manifestation. But the bridge often looks strange at first. Unexpected events, sudden shifts, closed doors, new opportunities, surprising changes. If you panic, waver, or abandon the assumption, you interrupt the bridge. Persistence stabilizes the bridge. This is why Neville said, "All you need do is persist. Events will reshape themselves around your assumption." Persistence isn't you making it happen. It is you staying out of the way while the law does its work. Persistence is the answer to doubt. Doubt is not the enemy. Reacting to doubt is the enemy. Doubt comes from the old state. It has no power of its own. But if you entertain it, if you believe it, if you replay it, you re-enter the old identity. Persistence neutralizes doubt by refusing to feed it. When doubt whispers, "It's not working," you answer, "It is already done." When fear whispers, "What if it doesn't happen?" you answer, "It already happened in consciousness." When impatience whispers, "This is taking too long," you answer, "Time is irrelevant. The end is certain." This is how the persistent mind wins. Persistence is the evidence of faith. Faith is not emotion. Faith is not optimism. Faith is not hoping for the best. Faith is remaining in the end, even when the senses contradict it. Your persistence is your faith. Your faith is your persistence. This is why Jesus repeatedly said, "According to your faith, be it unto you." Matthew 9:29. He could have said, "According to your persistence, be it unto you." The meanings are identical. Persistence makes the end feel natural. At first, living in the end may feel like a stretch. It may feel unfamiliar. But the more you persist, the more natural it becomes. Naturalness is the key in manifestation. Neville said, "That which you feel to be natural becomes your reality." Persistence transforms the imagined state into the natural state. And once it feels natural, the manifestation must occur. Your subconscious accepts the feeling as truth, and the physical world reflects it. Persistence turns desire into identity. Once you persist long enough, your desire is no longer something you want. It becomes something you are. Rich thoughts become the thoughts of a rich person. Loved feelings become the feelings of one who is loved. Confident behaviors become the behaviors of one who is secure. Healed reactions become the reactions of one who is whole. Your desire becomes your self-concept. Neville declared, "You are already the person you want to be. You simply do not know it." Persistence reveals the truth. You become the version of yourself. You refuse to stop assuming. The reward of persistence is certainty. The final stage of persistence is not exhaustion. It is certainty. A quiet, unshakable, divine certainty. Nothing outside you can disturb you. Nothing can pull you from the end. Nothing can make you doubt what you have already claimed. This is the peace spoken of in Philippians 4:7. The peace of God, which surpasses understanding, shall guard your heart and mind. Persistence leads to that peace. Peace leads to manifestation. Because once you feel this peace, the desire has already materialized internally, and the physical must follow. Chapter 7. The Law of Revision. One of the greatest gifts God has given man is the power to rewrite his past. Most people believe they are bound by memory, shaped by trauma, limited by old experiences, and defined by what has already happened. But Neville Goddard revealed a truth that overturns all such beliefs. Change your conception of the past, and you will change the future. This revelation is known as the Law of Revision, the ability to revisit any event from your past and reimagine it so that its emotional impact changes, and therefore its future consequences dissolve. Scripture confirms this mystical truth. Behold, I make all things new. Revelation 21:5. All things includes your past, your memory, your experiences, your self-image. Your past is not fixed unless you insist on keeping it that way. The past lives only in consciousness. Nothing from the past exists except as a memory you carry. The event is gone, but your interpretation remains. It is your emotional interpretation that shapes your beliefs, your expectations, and ultimately, your manifestations. This means the past only has power if you continue to feel it. If you revise the feeling, you revise the meaning. If you revise the meaning, you revise the belief. If you revise the belief, you revise your destiny. Neville said, "The past and future are within the imagination, and imagination can change either." This is spiritual mastery, the ability to free yourself from the chains of old emotional impressions. Why revision is essential for manifestation. You cannot move into a new future while dragging an old emotional identity behind you. The subconscious mind does not know time. It only knows impressions. If a past event still carries pain, shame, fear, or limitation, the subconscious will continue reproducing patterns that align with that feeling. For example, if you were betrayed in the past, you may subconsciously expect betrayal. If you experienced lack in childhood, you may subconsciously expect financial struggle. If you were dismissed or overlooked, you may subconsciously expect rejection. These patterns are not fate. They are unrevised memories. Jesus said a profound statement that aligns with revision: "Forgive, and ye shall be forgiven." Luke 6:37. To forgive is to revise, to release the emotional charge of the past, to set yourself free from the old state, to create room for a new experience. How revision works in the mind. Revision is simple but incredibly powerful. It works in 3 steps. 1. Recall the event. Bring to mind the moment that caused emotional contraction, not to relive the pain, but to rewrite it. 2. Rewrite the event in imagination. Imagine the scene going the way you wish it had gone. Hear what you wish was said. See what you wish had happened. Feel the outcome you wanted. 3. Feel the new event as real. The feeling is what seals the revision. When you feel the revised event deeply, the subconscious accepts it as the new truth. Neville said, "The past must be rewritten if you would change the future." Because once the subconscious accepts the new version, the old emotional pattern dissolves, and the future aligns with the revised. Feeling. Revision is not denial. It is transformation. You are not pretending the event didn't occur. You are transforming its meaning. You are reclaiming your power. You are rewriting the inner script that has shaped your expectations. This is not psychological denial. It is spiritual authorship. You are the writer of your inner world. You have full authority over memory. God declared, "I, even I, am he that blotteth out thy transgressions." Isaiah 43:25. To blot out is to revise, to rewrite, to erase the emotional imprint. Revision is divine forgiveness, applied to your own past. Revision allows you to become a new self. You cannot become the wealthy self while emotionally tied to the self who struggled. You cannot become the loved self while emotionally tied to the self who was rejected. You cannot become the confident self while tied to the self who was belittled. Revision frees you to embrace a new identity, without the weight of the old story. Paul understood this when he wrote, "Old things are passed away. Behold, all things are become new." 2 Corinthians 5:17. The old things do not pass away on their own. They pass away because you revise them. You remove the sting. You remove the meaning. You remove the emotional charge. Then you can step into the new self without contradiction. Nightly revision. Your daily spiritual shower. Neville taught the practice of nightly revision, a daily cleansing of consciousness. Before sleep, review your day. Identify anything undesirable. Rewrite it in imagination. Feel the revised version as reality. Drift into sleep, holding the new scene. This is as important spiritually as bathing is physically. Because if you go to sleep carrying negative impressions, the subconscious will use them as the blueprint for tomorrow. But if you revise the day, you enter sleep with a purified emotional state, and the subconscious uses that as the blueprint. This is the meaning behind, "Let not the sun go down upon your wrath." Ephesians 4:26. Do not carry old emotional states into the next cycle of creation. Revision prevents emotional contamination. It resets you to your chosen identity daily. Revision changes your future instantly. One of Neville's most radical teachings is this: There is no past. There is only the present moment reshaped by imagination. When you revise an event, you do not just change the memory. You change the chain of future events. That would have grown from that memory. This is why people who revise their past often experience unexpected apologies, new opportunities, shifts in relationships, release of chronic emotions, instant changes in self-concept, breakthroughs that once felt impossible. Because the moment the subconscious accepts a new emotional truth, the entire future rearranges. God said, "I will restore to you the years that the locust hath eaten." Joel 2:25. Revision is restoration. Revision is repair. Revision is divine reset. You are never a prisoner of what has been. The law of revision frees you from every chain the past tried to place upon you. What someone said cannot bind you. What someone did cannot define you. What life took from you cannot limit you. What mistakes you made cannot imprison you. Revision rewrites the narrative. Revision restores your authority. Revision liberates your identity. Revision shifts your destiny. Because once the inner story changes, the outer story must follow. Chapter 8. The Law of Allowing. Once you have imagined the end, once you have assumed the state, and once you have felt the wish fulfilled, there comes a point in the creative process where you must release the desire into the hands of the infinite. This step is known as allowing, the art of letting God, the universe, or your subconscious mind produce the manifestation without your interference. Allowing is not passive. Allowing is not apathy. Allowing is not waiting helplessly. Allowing is faith in motion. It is the confidence that the unseen power is working on your behalf, even when your eyes perceive no evidence of it. It is the resting in the truth that what you have accepted as real within must express itself without. Neville Goddard taught, "You plant the seed by assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. After that, let the seed grow without your help." You do not dig up a seed to check its progress. You do not interfere with nature's process. You do not panic because you see no immediate sprout. You allow the seed to do what seeds do become. Allowing begins where effort ends. After the assumption is made, effort is unnecessary. And worse, effort becomes sabotage. When you continue to push, struggle, or desperately try to make something happen, you are revealing one thing. You do not believe the assumption was accepted by consciousness. Jesus taught the principle of allowing through these words. Consider the lilies, how they grow. They toil not. They spin not. Luke 12:27. To toil is to force. To spin is to worry. The lilies do neither, yet they flourish. Allowing is the spiritual posture of flourishing. It is the inner knowing that your desire is unfolding in perfect order, perfect timing, perfect sequence, even when the physical world appears unchanged. The universe works best without interference. Your subconscious mind is infinitely intelligent. It knows how to orchestrate events, align people, open doors, close doors, shift circumstances, inspire intuition, and guide you onto the perfect path. But it cannot do its work if the conscious mind keeps interrupting. interference takes many forms. Doubting the process, checking for results, trying to force outcomes, worrying about timing, trying to manipulate people, asking, when will it happen? Asking, how will it happen? Asking, why isn't it here yet? Each of these behaviors communicates mistrust. Mistrust collapses the assumption. Collapsing the assumption resets the manifestation cycle. Allowing means you trust the bridge of incidents, even when you cannot see it forming. This is what Proverbs 3:5 instructs. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. Understanding is the how. Trust is the allowing. Allowing requires inner relaxation. The most powerful creators are the most relaxed, not lazy, spiritually relaxed. Relaxation opens the gateway for the subconscious to work. Tension closes it. Relaxation says, it is done. Tension says, it is not done yet. I must act. But manifestation flows from inner surrender, not from external pressure. This is why the Psalms declare, be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10. Stillness allows God-like consciousness to move. Stillness is allowing. Stillness is confidence. Stillness is the language of certainty. When you enter stillness, you are no longer trying to make it happen. You are letting the finished work surface. Allowing does not mean doing nothing. Allowing is not an action. It is aligned action. There is a profound difference between the two. Unaffected action comes from anxiety, fear, impatience, insecurity. Inspired action comes from the state of the wish fulfilled. When you allow, you are guided to the right action at the right time in the right spirit. Your inner knowing instructs you subtly. Call this person. Go here today. Send this message. Complete this form. Try this idea. Say yes. Say no. These actions appear effortless and obvious. They do not feel forced. They feel natural. This is what Neville meant when he said, events will unfold naturally to reveal your assumption. Allowing invites these events. Forcing delays them. Allowing requires letting go of logic. Logic is the most persistent enemy of allowing. Logic demands explanations. Logic demands timelines. Logic demands proof. But the subconscious mind and the divine order of creation do not operate under logic. They operate under law. Creation is not reasonable. Creation is automatic. When you try to understand how something will happen, you block the very power designed to make it happen. This is why Jesus said, "Judge not according to the appearance." John 7:24. The appearance reveals nothing. The unseen reveals everything. Allowing means you stop measuring. You stop analyzing. You stop calculating. You stop checking. You simply be the version of yourself who already has the desire, and let the world match it. Allowing transforms waiting into having. Most people wait for results. Creators allow results. Waiting is lack. Allowing is fulfillment. Waiting says, "It's not here yet." Allowing says, "It is already mine. It simply hasn't been revealed." Waiting is exhausting. Allowing is restful. Waiting delays. Allowing accelerates. Isaiah understood this difference when he wrote, "In returning and rest shall ye be saved. In quietness and confidence shall be your strength." Isaiah 30:15. Returning equals going back to the feeling of, the wish fulfilled. Rest equals allowing. Quietness equals no resistance. Confidence equals expectation. This is the essence of allowing. Allowing is the final step before manifestation. Once you have imagined the end, felt the end, and become the end. Allowing is the final act that brings the manifestation into form. Allowing is the tranquility of certainty. Allowing is the silence of faith. Allowing is the acceptance of the finished work. Allowing is the space God moves through. When you allow, you say internally, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me." Universe, I trust the unfolding. Subconscious, I know you are creating. It is done. And in that moment, the law begins solidifying the bridge of incidents. What you have allowed inwardly must appear outwardly. Chapter 9. The Law of Detachment. Detachment is one of the most misunderstood principles in manifestation. Most people think detachment means not caring, withdrawing, or suppressing emotion. But spiritual detachment is none of these things. Detachment is freedom, the freedom to let the desire materialize without clinging, worrying, doubting, or grasping. Detachment is the spiritual confidence that what you have assumed within must appear without. It is the calm inner certainty that the work is done. And, because it is done, you no longer cling to the desire with anxiety. Neville Goddard expressed it this way: "You must desire and go without desire." This does not mean killing your longing. It means fulfilling it in imagination so completely that you no longer long for it. You have already claimed it. Scripture echoes this spiritual maturity. "What things soever ye desire, when ye pray, believe that ye have received them." Mark 11:24. Once you believe you have received, there is nothing left to cling to. That is detachment. Detachment comes after the assumption. You do not detach from your desire before entering the feeling. You detach after the wish is fulfilled internally. Detachment is the natural result of successful assumption. Think of it this way. If a package has been shipped, you do not call the company every 5 minutes. You relax because you know it's on the way. If a contract has been signed, you do not worry whether the agreement is valid. You relax because it is settled. If a check has been deposited, you do not panic about the balance. You trust the process. Detachment is the spiritual equivalent of knowing. It is on its way because it is already mine. This is what Jesus meant when he said, "Thy Father knoweth what things ye have need of before ye ask him." Matthew 6:8. He knows, therefore you can rest. Detachment does not mean inaction. Many people misunderstand detachment as doing nothing, but detachment is not a lack of movement. It is a lack of resistance. Detachment means you take inspired action, not anxious action. You move from intuition, not fear. You respond from the state of the wish fulfilled, not from the state of lack. You follow nudges, not desperation. You walk with confidence, not tension. Detachment aligns you with opportunities. Attachment blocks them. Attachment says, This must happen now. This must come through this person. It must unfold in this exact way. But detachment says, I allow the highest path to unfold. This leaves room for God, for the subconscious mind, for the unseen intelligence, to orchestrate the best possible outcome. Attachment is a sign of inner conflict. Attachment always reveals a deeper truth. You do not yet believe the desire is yours. Attachment is the emotional state of, I need this. I don't have this. What if it doesn't happen? What if I lose it? What if I'm disappointed? Attachment is fear wearing the mask of desire. Detachment, on the other hand, is quiet confidence. It says, it is done. It's mine already. I can rest now. Nothing can stop what is unfolding. I am already the version of myself who has this. Isaiah wrote of this divine assurance. In quietness and confidence shall be your strength. Isaiah 30:15. Quietness equals detachment. Confidence equals fulfillment. Detachment is not lack. It is fulfillment. You cannot detach from a desire you still feel hungry for. Hunger reveals lack. Lack reveals disbelief. When you truly assume the wish fulfilled, the hunger disappears. You cannot hunger for a meal you've already eaten. You cannot crave water when you've already drunk. You cannot long for something you already possess. Detachment is the emotional fullness. That says, I have received. This is why Hebrews 11:1 defines faith as the substance of things hoped for. Once a desire gains substance within you, you detach from it naturally. Because in consciousness, you already hold it. Detachment stabilizes the conscious and subconscious. After you imagine and feel the wish fulfilled, detachment seals the assumption into the subconscious. It tells the subconscious, we are done. This is now our reality. Without detachment, the subconscious receives mixed signals. Desire says yes. Doubt says no. Hope says maybe. Fear says, what if not? This inner tug of war delays the manifestation. Detachment ends the war. It brings harmony, coherence, and unity between your conscious intention and your subconscious belief. Jesus symbolized this unity when he said, a house divided against itself cannot stand. Mark 3:25. Detachment unifies the house. Detachment makes space for the bridge of incidents. When you detach, you allow the subconscious to build the bridge of incidents. That leads from where you are to the fulfillment of your desire. But when you cling in anxiety, you block the bridge. Because the bridge is subtle. It often appears in unexpected ways through people and events you did not anticipate. Attachment wants control. Detachment welcomes divine orchestration. This is why the psalmist wrote, commit thy way unto the Lord. Trust also in him, and he shall bring it to pass. Psalm 37, verse 5. Commit equals assume. Trust equals detach. He shall bring it to pass equals manifestation. Detachment feels like peace. When you detach, your body relaxes, your mind loosens, your emotions settle, your spirit expands. You begin to live from the state of, I have it. It is done. I am. This peace is a sign of alignment. It is the internal confirmation. that the desire has been accepted by the subconscious and is now on its way into expression. This is the peace that passes all understanding, spoken of in Philippians 4:7. A peace not based on evidence, but on inner knowing. Detachment invites unexpected blessings. Once you detach, you stop interfering with the path, and you allow God to surprise you. Blessings come from angles you never considered. People show up you didn't expect. Opportunities unfold without strain. Doors open with little effort. Manifestations arrive faster, smoother, and far more elegantly than your logic ever could have planned. Because detachment hands the steering wheel to the infinite part of you that sees the entire map. Chapter 10. The Power of Inner Speech. Your inner speech is the quiet architect of your entire life. It is the constant stream of thoughts, conversations, assumptions, and self-talk that no one hears but you. And yet, it is the loudest voice in the universe when it comes to shaping your reality. Neville Goddard said, "Inner talking is the beginning of the word made flesh." This means your outer world is nothing more than your inner conversations pushed out. Every argument you rehearse in your mind, every complaint you repeat internally, every fear-filled sentence you entertain, all of it forms the blueprint for what your life must express. Scripture confirms this mystical truth. The tongue has the power of life and death. Proverbs 18:21. This tongue is not merely the physical tongue, it is the spiritual tongue, your inner speech. Your inner words give life to your desires, or death to your dreams. Inner speech reveals your true state. You can repeat affirmations aloud, but your inner speech always reveals your actual belief. You cannot hide from your inner dialogue. It reflects your state with perfect accuracy. A person may say outwardly, "I am wealthy," but their inner speech may whisper, "I always struggle." Money is hard to come by. I hope this works. This inner contradiction cancels the outer declaration. In manifestation, your inner words are the real commands. Jesus said, "Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh." Matthew 12:34. Your inner speech reveals the heart, the feeling state. You cannot speak one thing internally and expect to live another externally. Your inner conversations shape your relationships. Most people think their relationships are shaped by external interactions, but they are shaped long before that by the imagination. Every inner conversation you have with someone, whether loving or hostile, becomes the vibrational template for how they show up in your world. If your inner speech towards someone is, "They don't value me," "They frustrate me," "They never listen," then the person will mirror that script, not because they choose to, but because you cast them in that role. Neville taught, "Change your inner talking, and you will change your world." When your inner speech shifts, from criticism to appreciation, from frustration to understanding, from lack to abundance, your relationships transform effortlessly. Inner speech must match the assumption. Assuming the wish fulfilled is powerful, but if your inner speech contradicts the assumption, the subconscious becomes divided. For example, if you assume wealth, but internally say, "This is taking too long," or "Nothing ever works for me," your inner speech denies the assumption. If you assume love but internally say, "No one ever stays," Or, I'm not enough. Your inner speech destroys the feeling. If you assume healing but internally say, what if it gets worse? Or, I'm afraid this won't work. Your inner speech disrupts the creation. Inner speech is the maintenance of the assumed state. It keeps the soil fertile and the seed protected. You are always talking to someone in your mind. Every day, you engage in silent conversations with yourself, loved ones, people who hurt you, people you desire, people you fear, people you admire, people you avoid. These inner conversations are not private. They are creative acts. Neville said, "Your inner talking awakens what you whisper." You are always planting something, a blessing or a curse, a limitation or a liberation, a block or a breakthrough. Your inner speech never stops creating. Direct your inner speech with intention. You do not silence inner speech. You train it. You instruct it. You guide it. You discipline it. When the old voices arise, you replace them. When doubt speaks, you override it. When fear whispers, you dismiss it. When insecurity surfaces, you speak the truth of your new identity. This is the meaning behind take every thought captive. 2 Corinthians 10:5. You capture the old speech and replace it with the new. Mastery comes from intentional inner language. Build inner conversations that reflect the end. Begin creating inner conversations that match the future you have already assumed. For example, if you desire wealth, your inner speech should sound like, money flows to me easily. I am always provided for. I am trusted with abundance. If you desire love, your inner speech should say, I am cherished. I am valued. I am deeply appreciated. If you desire health, your inner speech should affirm, my body is strong. Every cell responds to my intention. I am whole and perfect. If you desire success, your inner conversations should declare, everything I touch prospers. I am recognized. I am chosen. These are not merely affirmations. They are identity statements spoken internally to reinforce your assumed state. Refuse to entertain unproductive speech. There are two kinds of inner speech: the speech that serves you and the speech that sabotages you. The speech of worry, fear, and negativity comes from the old self. The speech of confidence, love, and fulfillment comes from the new self, your assumed identity. When you catch yourself engaging in old speech, you simply say, no, this is not my story anymore. And you immediately redirect it. This is who I am now. This is the discipline Neville referred to when he said, you rise by controlling your inner speech. You rise by choosing the inner language of the version of yourself who already has the desire. The world responds to your inner words. Outer conversations are delayed reflections of inner speech. People begin speaking to you differently. Opportunities acknowledge your worth. Relationships improve or dissolve appropriately. Finances reflect your new assumptions. Health responds to your new story. The world shifts because you shifted. The script you speak within. Jesus demonstrated this principle when he said, by thy words thou shalt be justified. Matthew 12:37. Your inner words justify. Your outer experience. you cannot be justified outwardly. By speech, you deny inwardly. Your inner speech must match the version of yourself you are becoming. Inner speech is identity reinforcement. You speak like the person you are becoming. Before you physically become them, you speak like the wealthy version of yourself. Before the money arrives, you speak like the loved version of yourself. Before the partner appears, you speak like the healed version of yourself. Before the body transforms, you speak like the successful version of yourself. Before the world recognizes you. This is spiritual self-creation. Chapter 11. The Art of Living in the End. The greatest secret in manifestation is the ability to live in the end, to mentally occupy the state of the wish fulfilled before the physical senses confirm it. Living in the end is not pretending. It is not fantasizing. It is not hoping. It is being. Neville Goddard said, "To live in the end is to live from the feeling of the wish fulfilled." This means you enter the identity of the version of yourself who already has the desire, and you remain there. You think from that version. You react from that version. You speak from that version. You feel from that version. Scripture affirms this mystical truth with simple authority. Declare the end from the beginning. Isaiah 46:10. You begin with the end. Then you live as though the end is the only truth. This chapter is the heart of creation. Living in the end begins with identity. You cannot live in the end if you still identify as the person who is waiting, struggling, hoping, or lacking. Living in the end means embodying the identity of the one who already possesses the desire. For example, if you desire wealth, you must become one who is wealthy in consciousness. If you desire love, you must become one who is loved and valued. If you desire success, you must become one who naturally is successful. If you desire healing, you must become one who is whole. Identity is the foundation of the end. Neville taught, you must be the thing you want to manifest, not wish for it. Be it. The end must become your internal home. Living in the end is not a momentary visualization. It is your dwelling place. It is the psychological home you return to, over and over throughout the day. A man who lives in the end does not check for progress. He does not wonder if it's working. He does not compare the current evidence with the desired outcome. He is anchored in one truth: it is already done. This is why Jesus spoke with unstoppable authority. He operated from the end. When he thanked the Father before the miracle occurred, he demonstrated the principle clearly. Father, I thank thee that thou hast heard me. John 11:41. The gratitude came before the manifestation, because the manifestation already existed in consciousness. That is living in the end. Living in the end neutralizes fear. Fear arises only when you are not living in the end. Fear comes from believing the outcome is uncertain. But when you occupy the end in imagination, fear evaporates, because you already possess the outcome spiritually. Fear says, what if it doesn't happen? End consciousness says, it already happened. Fear says, what if it takes too long? And consciousness says, time is irrelevant. It is done. Fear says, what if something goes wrong? And consciousness says, nothing can prevent what is finished. This is why perfect love casts out fear, because love is the feeling of completion. First, John 4:18. Living in the end is spiritual fearlessness. The end must control your reactions. Your reactions are the clearest indicators of whether you are living in the end or living in the old state. When something negative appears, do you panic? Do you doubt? Do you assume setbacks? Do you feel abandoned? If so, you are reacting from the old identity. But when you live in the end, your reactions shift. You respond calmly. You remain certain. You trust the unfolding. You interpret events through the lens of the fulfilled desire. A man living in the end knows that even obstacles are simply part of the bridge of incidents, leading to the fulfillment of his assumption. This is the maturity Jesus spoke of. Judge not according to appearances. John 7:24. The end determines how you judge the appearance. Living in the end changes your behavior naturally. When you truly occupy the end state, your behavior shifts automatically. You do not force new habits. They arise from your new identity. For example, a man who sees himself as wealthy spends, saves, and thinks differently, not because he forces it, but because it flows naturally. From the end, he occupies. A woman who sees herself as loved communicates differently, walks differently, moves differently, chooses differently. A person who sees themselves as successful shows up with confidence, speaks with authority, and walks with purpose. These shifts are not effort. They are expression. The end expresses itself effortlessly. Living in the end accelerates. Manifestation. The speed of manifestation depends on one thing: how consistently you live in the end. The more stable your inner state, the faster the outer world conforms. When you drift out of the end, you simply return, gently, calmly, confidently. This return is spiritual mastery. David wrote, "He restoreth my soul." Psalm 23:3. To restore means to return, to bring back to the desired state. When you continually restore yourself to the end, the subconscious receives a clear, undivided message, and manifestation becomes inevitable. Living in the end feels like peace. When you finally stabilize in the end, you no longer feel the tension of longing. You feel peace, not the peace of passivity, but the peace of possession. You feel gratitude, you feel certainty, you feel relief, you feel completion. This peace is the spiritual confirmation that you have successfully assumed the end. Philippians 4:7 describes it perfectly. The peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, shall guard your hearts and minds. This peace guards the assumption. It protects the end. It becomes your emotional shield. Living in the end is the pinnacle of creation. All manifestation leads to this point. Every chapter before this one was preparing you for this singular mastery, living now as the person you intend to become, not waiting, not hoping, not trying, not wishing, being. Neville said, "The end is where we begin." You begin at the finish line. You move through life from fulfillment. You walk, talk, feel, and think as the one who already arrived. And then, the world rearranges itself to match your inner completion. Chapter 12, The Birth of the New Self. All manifestation, all transformation, all spiritual awakening culminates in one divine moment, the birth of the new self. This is the greatest miracle a human being can experience. The moment when you stop identifying with the old patterns, the old limitations, the old assumptions, and finally become the person you have been imagining. Neville Goddard explained this sacred moment with profound clarity. Your nature is to become whatever you imagine yourself to be. Manifestation is not merely about obtaining things, it is about becoming someone new. The new self is your true identity, the one God intended you to discover through imagination, assumption, and faith. The old self was a mask. The new self is the revelation. Scripture describes this inner transformation as rebirth. Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Romans 12:2. Put on the new man. Ephesians 4:24. Old things are passed away. Behold, all things are become new. 2 Corinthians 5:17. This rebirth is not symbolic. It is literal, psychological, emotional, spiritual. In this chapter, we explore how the new self is born and how to walk in it with power. The old self is a state, not a life sentence. Your old identity, the one shaped by fear, lack, trauma, disappointment, limitation, is not the real you. It is simply a state of consciousness you once occupied. You were never meant to live there permanently. But because you repeated the same assumptions, the same emotions, the same reactions, the same inner speech, you became loyal to that state. Eventually, you believed it was you. But it was never you. It was only a pattern. The moment you imagine a new self and assume it, the old self begins to dissolve. This is why God said, I make all things new. Revelation 21:5. He makes you new. By revealing the truth, you are not bound by who you were. The new self begins with an inner decision. Rebirth begins the moment you decide within yourself, I am no longer who I used to be. Not because life changed, but because you changed. The new self emerges in a single decision, and that decision is strengthened by assumption, reinforced by inner speech, supported by feeling, and stabilized by persistence. Creation begins with the inner I am. I am healthy. I am wealthy. I am loved. I am powerful. I am chosen. I am restored. This I am is the divine name spoken by God in Exodus 3:14. I am that I am. When you say I am, you invoke the creative power of God within you. You must clothe yourself in the identity you choose. Neville often said, you must dress yourself mentally in the state you desire. Just as you put on clothing, you put on identity. The new self is your spiritual wardrobe. You choose the version of yourself you desire to express, and mentally clothe yourself in that version until it feels natural. Living in the end is the act of wearing the new identity. Persistence is the act of reinforcing it. Feeling is the act of embodying it. Inner speech is the act of vocalizing it. Detachment is the act of trusting it. When these elements combine, the new self becomes permanent. The old self will try to pull you back. Every rebirth includes resistance, not from the world, from memory. The old self may whisper, This isn't who you really are. You've failed before. It won't last. You're pretending. Go back to what's familiar. These whispers are not truth. They are echoes. The old self has no power. Once you stop reacting to it, this is why Paul said, "Cast off the old man with his deeds." Colossians 3:9. The old man has deeds, meaning habits, reactions, emotional patterns. But they only survive if you perform them. When you refuse to respond as the old self, it dies. The new self has new reactions. You know you are stepping into the new self when your reactions begin to change. Instead of reacting with fear, you respond with faith. Instead of reacting with insecurity, you respond with confidence. Instead of reacting with doubt, you respond with certainty. Instead of reacting to appearances, you respond to the end. Instead of reacting with anger, you respond with peace. Reactions reveal identity. When your reactions begin to align with your desires, the new self is taking root. The new self speaks differently. Your inner speech becomes elevated, empowered, clear, aligned with the divine identity you have chosen. You stop speaking from doubt, limitation, worry, fear, victimhood. You begin speaking from abundance, authority, worthiness, clarity, gratitude. You speak as God speaks. Let there be, and there is. Your inner conversations align with your chosen end and your chosen identity. This is spiritual mastery. The new self attracts a new world. Once you fully occupy a new identity, your outer world must reflect it. People treat you differently. Opportunities appear. Doors open. Old cycles break. Patterns dissolve. Abundance flows. Love increases. Health stabilizes. Confidence grows. This is not magic. It is law. Neville taught, to change the world, you must change yourself. Not your behavior, your identity. The world is a mirror. The mirror does not change until you change. The new self is the true fulfillment of your desire. Everything you have imagined in the previous chapters. The feeling, the assumption, the faith, the revision, the detachment, was leading you to one destination, becoming the one who already is. Once you become, you no longer chase the desire. You express it. You no longer hope for change. You embody it. You no longer wait for results. You reveal them. The desire was never outside of you. It was always the blueprint of the self you were destined to become. When the new self is born, the desire is fulfilled automatically, because desires are not random. They are instructions from the future you. The new self lives above circumstances. Once the new self is stable, circumstances lose their power. You no longer interpret life from fear, lack, instability, confusion. You interpret from identity. When circumstances arise that conflict with your desire, you do not collapse. You remain. You hold the state. You hold the assumption. You hold the identity. And reality adjusts. This is what Jesus meant when he said, "According to your faith, be it unto you." Faith equals identity. Identity equals destiny. The new self is eternal. Once the new self is fully embodied, you cannot go back. The old state feels foreign. The old patterns feel distant. The old emotions lose their grip. The old limitations dissolve. You have been reborn. You are now the operant power. The creator, the master of your own consciousness. This is the moment where you say, I am. This is who I truly am. And the universe answers, your wish is my command. Epilogue. Your new life begins now. You have reached the end of this book, but in truth, you have arrived at the beginning of a new life. Nothing about the world outside you has changed yet. And yet everything has changed, because you have changed. A shift has taken place within you. A revelation has dawned. An identity has awakened. This awakening is subtle, yet unmistakable. It is the inner knowing that I am the operant power. I am the cause. I am the creator of my world. When Neville Goddard said, your imagination is God, he was not speaking metaphorically. He was revealing the greatest secret ever entrusted to humanity. The God you seek is the God you are. Not in arrogance, but in awareness. Not in ego, but in identity. And because you are one with the creative power of God, your assumptions shape your destiny. Your feelings give it life. Your inner speech sustains it. Your persistence completes it, and your faith reveals it. Everything in this book has been guiding you toward one realization. Your wish is not separate from you. Your wish is you calling you into a higher expression of yourself. You are now responsible for your consciousness. Before you knew the law, life appeared random. Things seemed to just happen. You reacted instead of created. You hoped instead of assumed. You asked instead of commanded. But now you know. And with that knowledge comes responsibility. A beautiful, empowering responsibility. The responsibility to guard the gates of your imagination. You must now be vigilant about the thoughts you permit, the feelings you dwell in, the assumptions you repeat, the inner conversations you entertain, the memories you cling to, and the identity you embody. This is not burden. This is freedom. Because once you accept responsibility for your inner world, you gain dominion over your outer world. Scripture says, keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. Proverbs 4:23. Your heart is your subconscious feeling state. Your outer life is simply its reflection. Guard it, shape it, command it. The old self has fallen away. As you moved through each chapter, you learned the law is always at work. You discovered the power of a chosen state. You mastered the art of assumption. You disciplined your imagination. You learned to feel the wish fulfilled. You persisted through appearances. You revised your past. You allowed the universe to work. You detached from the outcome. You shaped your inner speech. You lived in the end. You birthed the new self. These were not ideas. They were initiations. Every chapter was a doorway. Every principle was a transformation. Every truth was a cleansing of the old self. Now, the old identity, the one built on fear, lack, trauma, and limitation, can no longer hold you. You have outgrown that version of yourself. You stand now as the new creation Paul spoke of. Old things are passed away. Behold, all things are become new. 2 Corinthians 5:17. This is not poetry. This is law. This is your reality. You no longer walk into your future. You create it. Before this book, you may have walked into the future blindly, reacting to whatever the world presented. But now that you understand, there is no future waiting for you. There is only the future you are creating. Your assumptions today become your life tomorrow. Your inner speech today becomes your world tomorrow. Your feeling today becomes your manifestation tomorrow. Your identity today becomes your experience tomorrow. You don't walk into futures. You build them, and you build them from the inside out. You now possess the 3 crowns. There are 3 crowns every conscious creator must wear. 1. Awareness. You now know who you are. A spiritual being clothed in imagination, not a victim of circumstances. 2. Authority. You now know the law responds to you. Not sometimes, not occasionally, but always. 3rd assumption. You now know how to choose the state. That constructs your reality. These 3 crowns make you unstoppable. The universe responds to identity. Everything in your life rises or falls according to one thing: your self-concept. Not what you want, not what you pray for, not what you hope for, not what you deserve, but what you are in consciousness. If you are wealthy within, wealth must appear. If you are loved within, love must appear. If you are healthy within, health must appear. If you are successful within, success must appear. Identity is destiny. Your job is not to chase the desire. Your job is to become the one who already has it. You are now the operant power. Neville Goddard said repeatedly, "You are the operant power." Meaning, you are the one who operates the law. The law does not operate you. You imagine, and reality obeys. You assume, and reality conforms. You feel, and reality replicates. You persist, and reality surrenders. Never again say, "I hope this works," or "I don't know what will happen," or "Let's see." Say instead, "I command because I am." This is not arrogance. It is alignment. Alignment with God in you. Alignment with your true self. Alignment with the law. Your wish is no longer a wish. It is a command. You have graduated from wishing, hoping, begging, waiting, and wanting. You now speak the language of creation, assumption, authority, and identity. From this moment on, you no longer say, "I wish." You say, "I am," because once you say, "I am," the universe answers one way, and one way only. Your wish is my command. Not because the universe serves you out of duty, but because you and the universe are the same consciousness, expressing through different forms. Your new life begins now. Close the book, open your consciousness, choose your identity, embody your desire. Feel the end. Live in the end. Become the end. And let the physical world align itself. With the truth you have accepted, you are God in imagination. You are the master of assumption. You are the creator of your world. You are the one with the power to command reality. Your wish is my command. Thank you for listening. Please like and share.